Hello everyone, today's video I will be reviewing Spider-Man 3. At this point in time, Marvel was on top, red hot, and we thought Marvel could do no wrong. But not true. Even Marvel had some hit or miss and failures in the 2000s with their movies. For example, like the Fantastic Four, the Hulk from 2003, Daredevil, and Ghost Rider. Daredevil and Ghost Rider I thought were okay. Not great, they were just decent. They definitely were not the worst compared to like the Hulk from 2003. Out of that bunch, Hulk was the worst. But although Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man were the top three dominating killing at the box office, but when it came around the time to the third movies, they ran out of steam and got off balance, and they rushed the movies too fast, not giving them proper finales. Spider-Man 3 was directed by Sam Raimi. This is the final time he directed a Spider-Man movie, and he was also the first director to direct a superhero trilogy. He also did the screenplay and co-wrote the movie. Spider-Man 3 was also produced by Laura Ziskin, Avi Arad, and Grant Curtis. The movie was written by Yvonne Raimi, who also did the screenplay. This is Sam and Ted Raimi's brother. The screenplay was done by Alvin Sargent once again, who also did Spider-Man 2. The movie stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Thomas Hayden Church, Topher Grace, Bryce Dallas Howard, James Cromwell, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons. The music was composed by Christopher Young. Danny Elfman did not compose this movie because he was fired having disagreements with Sam Raimi. Christopher Young composed a lot of good horror movies like Hellraiser, The Grudge remake, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and he also did other movies like The Hurricane, Rapid Fire, and Entrapment. The movie was released on May 4, 2007. It made $894.9 million at the box office. Despite making that much money, yet the reviews were still somewhat mixed to average and a little bit of criticism. The plot to Spider-Man 3 is things are going well for Peter Parker. His life is balanced as Spider-Man at work and in school and his relationship with Mary Jane. His relationship with Mary Jane is going very well and he wants to marry her. Harry Osborn is still holding a grudge against Peter Parker. After a fight between Peter and Harry gets amnesia and he can't remember anything and why he hated Spider-Man. Flint Marko, a convict, escapes from prison, and he's the one who killed Uncle Ben, not the other guy. After an accident, Flint becomes the Sandman. An unknown unidentified alien species gets on Spider-Man's costume. The costume turns Spider-Man's suit black. The black costume alters Spider-Man's personality and Peter Parker's. After using church bells to get the black costume off, it falls on Eddie Brock and he becomes the Venom. After loving the first two Spider-Man movies, I saw this when it came out. At the time I was 13 going on 14, a preteen going in my early teen years. I was going through that phase and stage of my life that I still love comic books, thinking that they were for kids. Like any teenager, confusing age. When seeing this in the theaters, I thought it was okay, but at that age, you're not very critical, and you think every movie is great. It wasn't until my senior year of high school when I watched Nostalgia Critics video on Top 11 Spider-Man Dumbest Moments and other YouTube moviegoers on the flaws of this movie that I did not see at the time from the start, like I do now. This is a movie that fans either like or don't like. For me personally, I don't love or hate it. I'm not saying it's great, it's just an okay movie with decent okay moments, and other parts that went a little bit overboard, over the top, and off balance, and they kind of really overstuffed it with too many things. I was also upset and disappointed that Lizard Man was not the main villain in this movie, like I thought he was going to be after seeing Dylan Baker's cameo as Dr. Connors in Spider-Man 2. After seeing it in the movie theaters when I was 13, I thought it was okay. After that I moved on and rarely watched it, and I didn't think much of it at the time. During the pandemic, I binge-watched all three Spider-Man Sam Raimi movies, and well, it hasn't really aged well since rewatching the movie. As I've gotten older, now I see the big picture of the flaws and how the studio interfered, ruining this movie. They pushed the boundaries and overstuffed this movie with way too many villains, instead of trying to focus on one villain. This movie is not as bad as people have given it its reputation. It's bad, yes, with some moments, but is it the worst? No. It's not as bad as like Superman 4, Batman and Robin. Those movies are worse than this. I only the first two Spider movies, which I love. This one I rarely watch on rare occasions. This movie for me is 50-50. The movie does have some good things, like the early fight scene between Peter Parker and Harry Osborn was okay. When Harry gets amnesia, forgets why he hates Spider-Man, that part was okay. Thomas Hayden Church was good as Sandman. The special effects of the Sandman are CGI, but done right the right way, of course. We get some cool fight scenes between Spider-Man and Sandman. This is an example of CGI done right. My minor complaint is that his performance as Sandman is good, and he looks just like the character Sandman from the comic books. I just wish they did not make him the one that was responsible for shooting Uncle Ben. I'd rather if Uncle Ben's killer was just a regular thug and not Sandman. They basically went the Batman 89 route where the Joker is the one who killed Batman's parents, not Joe Chill. They should have given him his own story arc where he was a murderer or maybe robbed a bank, or something like where he was accused of a crime he did not commit. We see how Sandman is misunderstood because he has a sick daughter that is dying, and he's trying hard to get money to pay for her treatment because him and his wife could not afford to treat her medical condition. That part was okay. But again, it's cliche. My biggest cringe of this movie is Topher Grace as Eddie Brock / Venom. He really sucks in this movie. He's basically acting like Eric Fulmer from That 70s Show. He was the worst casting choice to play both Eddie Brock and Venom. He doesn't even look like Eddie Brock from the comic books. Eddie Brock is supposed to be a big, tall, muscular, and a macho man, not a nerd. The Venom look is cool, but it sucks we did not get to see more Venom in this movie. Venom should have been a solo villain in a Spider-Man movie. Even though I said the Venom look is cool, but Topher Grace's voice as Venom sucks. I can't take his voice seriously as Venom. He sounds like a parody instead of a scary monster evil voice, like in the 90s cartoon show. One would think that Sam Raimi directed the Evil Dead horror movies. You would think that with the Evil Dead horror movies that he was going to make Venom very scary in this movie, but that was not the case right here. Another thing that makes me cringe and annoy me in this movie was emo Peter Parker. Again, no disclaimer, no insult, or no disrespect to emos and goths. I get it, the costume alters his personality, but they really have to go in that direction? It's annoying when he's walking on the street, dancing to get attention. Peter's cocky and overconfident. I hate to say it, Peter's a douchebag in this movie. It was cool they tried to make the Spider-Man Alien Costume storyline, but it was done poorly and not executed very well. The animated series did a better job, because that is like one of the best Spider-Man comic books ever. The musical dance scene with the jazz club was not necessary. This is a Spider-Man movie, not a musical. It should have been just Mary Jane sees Peter with Gwen. She's jealous, she leaves the restaurant. Peter ditches Gwen and finds MJ on the street. They have an argument. Gwen eavesdrops on Peter and MJ and runs away feeling embarrassed, going out with Peter, thinking trying to make MJ jealous and was a rebound. This could have worked instead of a stupid dance musical to get her attention. Sam Raimi admits that he did not want to do that scene in this movie. The studio forced and pressured him doing a musical dance sequence. One of the reasons why Spider-Man 3 didn't do so well, despite it made a lot of money, the reviews were mixed and the studio would not allow Sam Raimi to have complete control on how he wanted to direct Spider-Man 3, and they really ruined his vision. People blame Sam Raimi for this movie, but honestly, the studio is mostly to blame for why this film gets a bad rep. Even Sam Raimi has admitted that he was not happy and satisfied how this movie turned out. Characters like Gwen Stacy and Captain Stacy, great characters and are very important and serve a purpose in the Spider-Man comic books, but in this movie, they really serve no purpose whatsoever. I mean, Bryce Dallas Howard looks just like the character Gwen Stacy, but he doesn't really have a big role in this movie. And there's really not much I have to say about her in this movie. It's not like how in the comic books when we all thought that Gwen Stacy was going to end up with Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but we all know what happened in the end. She died. Peter and Mary Jane's relationship gets very complicated in this movie. She's jealous of Peter's Spider-Man success and her acting career is going downhill after one bad review, and she gets fired from her acting job. When Mary Jane sees Spider-Man kiss Gwen Stacy upside down, mocking the first kissing scene from the first movie, this makes Mary Jane jealous, mad, because that was their kiss, and should not be somebody else's kiss. When Mary Jane is forced by Harry to break up with Peter, you could have said that Harry was right over there hiding behind the bushes. The way Harry finds out the truth about his father's death, he finds out from the butler, who was barely an important main character in this series. And why did it take so long to tell Harry the truth and not tell him in the first movie? It's like if Alfred Batman was just there with no purpose and explained how Joe Chill was forced instead of to kill Bruce Wayne's parents. This movie did have a nice visual of Spider-Man being on top of a church tower. After feeling bad for hitting Mary Jane, he comes to his senses and realizes how he has changed because of the black costume. He wants to get rid of the costume because of how it altered his personality and made him into something that he is not. Peter uses the church bells to get rid of the costume because the alien symbiote does not like noises. What really saves me from disliking this movie is the finale fight when Harry and Peter team up to stop Venom and Sandman. It was said how his friend Harry died the same way his father died, but instead he died for Peter and Spider-Man. Once again, Bruce Campbell has a third cameo in the series, this time as a hostess in a French restaurant. This is his best cameo in the movie and the series. It's funny when he goes in the restaurant telling me he has a reservation, he goes, "It's under Parker," and he goes, "Pekka." And he goes, "No, wait, it's Parker." He goes, "That is what I just said, Pekka." Well, I guess I know how to say Parker in French. Bruce Campbell's all three cameos by internet fan theories has pointed out that he could have been Mysterio the whole time. I don't know, for me it's hard to say, but one thing for sure, the reason why Bruce Campbell has a cameo in all three of this film, because in real life, both Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi are best friends in real life. Stan Lee cameo number 11, telling Peter Parker on the sidewalk in Times Square, "You know, I guess one man could make a difference." Enough said. Since the passing of Stan Lee in 2018, maybe we'll have Bruce Campbell for cameos in the rest of the entire Marvel films and TV shows. Nah, that wouldn't work and make any sense. Nah. This movie came out in 2007. That was a bad year for Marvel movies. The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Ghost Rider all came out the same year. They didn't do that well. Thankfully, a year later, Iron Man came out and starred the MCU movies, and a rebound for Marvel. Unlike the first two Spider-Man movies that had great ending build-ups for the sequels, this movie ends with Peter Parker and Mary Jane getting back together, and what the unknown fate of the relationship will be. It's sad this is the last time Tobey Maguire or Kirsten Dunst play Peter Parker / Spider-Man and Mary Jane. It also sucks this movie is one of the reasons why we did not get to see a Spider-Man 4. Since making Batman 89 comic book sequels, maybe they should do a Spider-Man Sam Raimi comic book continuation of this series. If Marvel watches this video and do this idea, I want residuals. So that was my review of Spider-Man 3. Like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get the latest updates on my YouTube channel, and I will see you next time. I know in my first Spider-Man movie review I said that I was not going to review the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, but you know what, I figured, what the heck? I'm going to review the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. It's only 2 movies.